Almost every fan of the amazing digital circus keeps wondering what's actually going to happen to Jax in episode 7 after the events of episode 6, but a lot of people forget that besides the rabbit, there are still the rest of the characters. With Zubul and Gangle, things are pretty clear. Same goes for Kinger. Ragatha's case is a bit more complicated, but still somewhat predictable, while Pomni's situation remains a real mystery and one of the most interesting topics to discuss. The sneak peek showed us that she seems happy and ready to just enjoy her life in the digital circus, but is everything really that simple? On one hand, yeah, but judging by all the previous episodes, we can clearly see that Pomni is a really sensitive character who takes every serious event way too personally. We saw that back in episode 2 when she just couldn't get over what happened in the pilot, and again in episode 5 during that small argument with Ragatha, and of course after that talk with Jax when she looked completely down and drained. That's where the contradictions start, cause it's obvious that the storylines of episodes 6 and 7 are connected, which means the next episode takes place the following day. On one hand, Pomni was on the verge of breaking down and seemed ready to talk to Jax, but the next day, we see her completely happy. On top of that, she doesn't even try to make up with Jax, she just straight up ignores him. At this point we realize that things with Pomni won't be as simple as the sneak peek made it seem, and basically she's left with only a few options. Either she accepts that Jax is gone from her life for good and stays the same jerk in her eyes, or she tries to make peace with him and help him learn how to live in the real conditions of the digital circus, instead of the world he made up for himself. In the first case, it's pretty straightforward and obvious. Pomni would just ignore the rabbit, and her life would actually be happy, since from that same sneak peek we can see a real friendship forming between Pomni and Ragatha. But something tells me Pomni's not just gonna give up like that, and she'll try to figure out what caused Jax to act so horribly. We already know the real reason, but for Pomni, it's still an unsolved mystery. Given Pomni's persistence, I'm 100% sure that during episode 7 she's gonna try to talk to Jax and figure out what's really going on with him. I've got a theory that the very frame Gooseworx showed us will appear right when Pomni decides to step into Jax's room. And here, everything depends on how their conversation goes. If it goes well, Pomni will be sitting on 2 chairs at once, staying on good terms with both Ragatha and Jax. But there's also a chance that Jax gets mad again, and we see a remake of that scene, and even then, it's not that simple. Going back to that leak, we can see that Jax is gonna, so to speak, suffer during episode 7, and honestly, that was already clear even after watching the final scene of episode 6. Even if Jax starts off super negative toward talking with Pomni and snaps at her again, putting her in a similar state, I'm sure that afterwards he'll finally realize that his whole worldview is a lie and that he can't keep going like this. Then he'll genuinely talk to Pomni, and things will be good for everyone. But what if none of our scenarios happen and Jax just says a bunch of harsh stuff to Pomni again, dragging her into that state once more? Given how she reacted last time, it's really scary to imagine what she could do. By the way, this situation also highlights a few important aspects that happen both inside and outside the amazing digital circus. If you break the scene down closer, it honestly feels like she was already preparing herself to do it. In the very last moment, she makes a completely different choice, and that ends up exploding into the fight that leaves her totally crushed by everything that just went down. But let's circle back to the core of this moment, because I'm about to prove to you that the creators originally did plan it that way. I already told y'all about that pose and the angle, but look closer. In that scene, we only see Pomni's body and the gun she's staring at, while her face is never shown on purpose. Maybe that was the creators' way of dodging restrictions, but once they realized the fallout such a scene could bring, they still decided to back off. And if you notice, there's another parallel moment where Pomni's literally fighting with herself, and that kind of panic doesn't look like simple fear of shooting Jax. It's tied to something way heavier. Jax gets that too, and that's exactly why he spins it into a joke, deep down afraid that Pomni might actually hurt herself. A lot of viewers were also thrown off by Pomni's question about her own abstraction, and that's when folks started thinking she might actually be standing right on the edge. That's definitely not gonna happen. Pomni's question was more of a hypothetical, just to see how Jax would react if she really was on the verge. After getting that cold and emotionless answer, she most likely decided to do exactly what Glitch and Gooseworx originally planned, just to test his further reaction. That would have been a crazy powerful moment, especially if right after that scene we got a shot of the loser's room. I'm almost certain that was the original plan, but then the show creators decided to redo the scene because YouTube's rules on this topic are way too harsh. But what if we toss the YouTube limits and look at this scene from a different angle? In that case, Pomni made the hardest choice possible. Instead of doing what Jax was kinda teasing her into,
"Now are you gonna shoot me or what?"
Did I do something wrong?
You sound like Ragatha right now.
that way she would have only confirmed his worldview. Or instead of doing what the show creators originally intended, she chose to start a fight. In doing so, she's standing up for herself and putting Jax in a position, either double down on his nihilism or admit he's wrong. Sadly, he went with the first option, even though it's obvious he took it really badly.
What's wrong with you?
Why didn't you fight back?
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Because I didn't fight back, that means I secretly care about you?
So in this case, we see that Pomni didn't do what she originally wanted because that would have been way too simple. What mattered to her was figuring out why Jax changed so much and what really drives him. So she picked this way to deal with the situation. But then a legit question comes up. Why didn't she try to find all that out just by talking, and if she realized that was useless, just do what Jax wanted? And here we get into an even deeper layer of thought, because if we remember Pomni's original stance on this whole so-called event.
So, who are you gonna kill first, Pom-Pom?
I don't know if I'll really be doing much of the killing. I'll just find guns for you, and you can do all the violent stuff. You like that, right?
You know none of this is real, right?
What do you mean?
Pomni clearly made it known she didn't want to hurt her friends, and only after Jax's convincing did she agree to join this adventure. But it's important to get that she saw it all as a game where to win, you had to shoot your friends. That's a key point, because with Jax, it's totally different. The adventure's over. They're already winners. And that shot literally makes no sense. If Pomni had fired, it would have meant something totally different to her than it did during the adventure. And if we think about how Pomni reacts to Jax, even after everything he said to her, we can totally see that Pomni still sees Jax as her friend, and all that aggression was just because she didn't get why things changed so suddenly. I think in episode 7, we're going to see a few key details that tie directly to this scene. We get that Pomni definitely ain't just going to let this slide, and it's going to be super important for her to figure out why her friend's acting like this. Even though Jax did everything to push her away, I'm more than sure that won't stop Pomni from digging up the truth, and she's 100% ready to hear it out a few more times. And the craziest part of all this is that YouTube censorship actually changed the original plan for these events. Sure, it won't affect the overall story or the latest episode, but the in-between stuff we're seeing now could have been totally different. Against that backdrop, I got curious and started thinking about how the next events might have played out if the creators had gone with their original vision. Let's say Pomni actually did it, and it'd make sense that she'd end up as the next loser, which means she'd land in the loser's room where a convo with Regatha would definitely happen, and that storyline probably wouldn't play out any differently. Meanwhile, Jax wouldn't have had to be so harsh, and judging by the emotions he felt after that, he was straight up disgusted with himself, and that's what triggered that panic attack everyone remembers so well.
God, you look stupid.
But I'm still sure that no matter how things went down, it wouldn't change the fact that Pomni was dead set on finding out the whole truth that Jax has been keeping under wraps. And with that, our video's coming to an end. Don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments and catch you next time.